Don't ever give up on a patient. Even if they came in over 2 years ago, invite them back for a new exam. And you're going to be surprised how many of those people actually start treatment.
Hello there, everybody. It's Dr. Glenn Krieger here with another episode of the Orthopreneurs Podcast. Today, coming live to us straight from Antioch, California. I want to announce you like you're at NCAA March Madness, 6'3" center from Antioch, California, Dr. Marie Gorczyca. Welcome.
Happy to be here, Glenn. Great to see you.
Happy to have you here. And like I said, you can tell I've been listening to a little bit too much basketball this week, introducing you like you're a star forward for a basketball team. But welcome. I'm really excited about this because we've had some good conversations. You've done some pretty cool stuff. And so before we jump into really the details of your life and the things we want to talk about, do you mind taking a second or two and just telling everybody a little bit about yourself, where you're from, how you ended up to where you are today, your practices, maybe a little bit, and I'll let you take it from here.
Well, thank you, Glenn. I've been a practicing orthodontist for 32 years. I started my practice in Antioch, California in 1996. Before that, I had worked in a group practice for a while, and I'd always been involved with teaching. And through that, and through a course which we gave at the University of the Pacific Dental School, I got more and more involved with dental practice management. And just to give a little bit about my background, when I was at the Harvard School of Dental Medicine as a dental student, I had the opportunity to get my master's in public health in health management and policy at the Harvard School of Public Health. And that was a really amazing experience for me because we had professionals from all different aspects of healthcare. We had professors from the Harvard Business School. We had CEOs of hospitals in the area. And it really exposed me to all the different facets of business management. And those facets kind of sunk in. And I brought those ideas with me to my orthodontic practice in Antioch, California. Through the course, which I was involved in for about 10 years, my research really was in 6 areas.
Okay.
Marketing, teamwork and leadership, customer service, HR management, treatment coordination, and management systems. Those are the 6 aspects of orthodontic practice management that really pretty much cover everything. And in that process, I wrote the books, and I'm still writing the books, which I always wished I had. So that's what I say. I write the books I wish I had.
Nice.
And through the process, I learn a lot about dental practice management.
Nice. And you have one practice, correct?
I am very, very happy and efficient and profitable to just have one practice. In the old days, I had my practice and I was also working at a group practice. I was working 6 days a week. I was working evenings till about 8 o'clock. And when I narrowed things down to one practice, I said to myself, how in the world did I even do 2 practices? For me personally, and I know we're going to talk about work-life balance a little bit, being in one location with the same team, following through on things every day, not coming into an office where I have a stack of people I have to call back because I take care of things as they come up. That has been very peaceful for me. And I like the single practice model.
Nice.
Very, very much.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
I think there's multiple ways that one can be happy in the world of orthodontics. For me, as a restorative doc, for years I had one practice and I enjoyed
Mhm.
having one practice. And there was a period of time I opened a second and I shut it shortly thereafter. Later in my life as an orthodontist, The idea of having more practices appeals to me. It's a different it's a different level of work,
Hmm.
and it just works for me. But let's talk a little bit about work-life balance because one of the things I know it's important to you is as a mother, as a spouse, the idea of work-life balance. We don't talk about it enough, right? And everybody's different. I have
Hmm.
people who, can't go to a CE event because they have to bathe their child, right?
Hmm.
Every night. I will not ever miss it. I have to bathe my child every single evening. And then there are people who've never bathed their kids, right? And they've never missed a CE course. It's all over the board. What does work-life balance mean to you?
Well, work-life balance means to me freedom and equity. And through those two things, happiness.
Yeah.
So I feel very fortunate. And I think that orthodontics is absolutely the best profession on earth because we have the freedom to set our schedules the way we would like. For example, when my son was young, he had to have violin lessons in a Suzuki group class, and he had to go on Tuesday afternoon. And one of the requirements was a parent had to be there. And so I had the freedom to change my schedule so that I worked Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And every Tuesday I was off so I could go take him for his Suzuki violin lesson. And that was very valuable to me and very good for him also. So that's what I'm talking about. The benefits of having that work life balance, freedom, and equity. And ultimately, setting your schedule for what gives you maximum happiness.
Yeah. And again, everybody's different. I love my kids. I love being around my kids. I love being around my business. I mean, everybody gets different levels of happiness from different things. And for me, I have to be balanced in a bunch of different places. And it
Now,
doesn't mean,
Glenn, your kids are grown, right?
well,
They're
but again, if we get into that discussion, I was this way when I had twins that were 3 weeks old.
oh,
So for me, my wife and I always had a discussion about what was going to happen. And, the one thing we always talk about is I marvel at mothers who work outside the home. My mother was an attorney. She had multiple sclerosis, didn't know it at the time, was always sick, and went back to law school when I was 10 years old. And so for me, she's an idol of mine, a hero, if you will, of going back to school while my dad was working. My mother was going back to school, learning, how to be an attorney while I was in school. And, your kids are homesick. What do you do? And so it was amazing to watch that. On the other side of it, the thing that I think does get overlooked a little bit, especially in my life, when we talk about like work-life balance, there's also that huge, incredible burden on the single wage earner in a family. There are fathers who stay home and the mother goes to work and earns. There are cases like mine where the wife stays at home and I go and earn. And there's a huge burden because if I don't go to work, we don't earn, right? There's no
right.
money to be paid. So for me, we had an earlier relationship agreement, my wife, who has a master's in speech pathology, that when it became just as expensive to have home care as it was for
Mhm.
her to make a living, we decided that she could best stay home and help the kids get raised. And as it turns out, we've got a couple of kids who need a little extra special needs stuff. And I go to work, but from the time they were 2, 3 weeks old, I mean, even younger, my oldest is now 22. I loved going to work. I mean,
Yeah.
I love coming home and I love going to work. And, to me, I know it sounds blasphemous. It sounds horrible. I get almost as much happiness when I'm buried in a project that gives me self-satisfaction, allows my mind to work, allows me to work through things as I do when I'm around my family. I don't get as much joy being around patients and doing treatment as I am around my family. Like if that's all there was, I wouldn't get as much mental exercise as I do when I'm working on a project related to the business, leadership, management, something like that. But on the other side of the coin, it took me years to recognize, Anne Marie, that
Yes.
people are not built like me. That,
Well, some are.
not everybody's built the way I am, and not
Yeah.
everybody's built the way you are. And we come in all sorts of shades when it comes to work-life balance.
Yes. And I agree with you 100% that to have a nanny, I had a full-time nanny when I had my son. It is very expensive. You have to consider it's going to cost you 50,000 a year.
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
after taxes.
Yeah.
So as an orthodontist, we can afford that. But if your salary is 50,000 or less, it's not worth it. You're
If
better off
if your
have.
salary is 75,000 or less, and in
Mhm.
today's day and age, if your
Yeah,
salary is 80,000 or
yeah.
less, it doesn't make sense
And it
unless.
doesn't matter if it's the man or the woman, the wife or the husband. I have plenty of orthodontic friends, women friends, whose husbands stayed home and took care of the kids, and they did an exceptional job.
Yeah.
So we're fortunate in orthodontics. We have a lot of choices to make. We decide our own schedules. There are so many practice options, and that's why I truly believe, and I still believe, orthodontics is one of the most wonderful professions out there.
Yeah.
I just think it's fabulous. And if I were to choose over again, I would be an orthodontist over again. I think
Right
it's
on.
just a fabulous profession.
Well, let's jump into something just with the time we have. Let's get into the discussion of how you look at practice, right? The way you look, we've talked a little bit, you and I, and the way you look at things is beautiful and different than the way some do. And I know you break things down into like three different sections, right? And so would you mind sharing a little bit out there with folks, a little bit about how you look at practice?
Okay. Well, the title of my fourth book is Take Action. And I think orthodontists are searching for what action items can they take? What can they do to make their practice the most profitable that it can be? Because the bottom line is cash flow. The
Right.
bottom line is, what's your salary? It doesn't matter how big your practice is, or how small your practice is, or how many locations you have, or how many assistants you have. The bottom line is, what is your salary? And we are working to earn a salary. So, in that arena, treatment coordination is extremely important because it brings you your patients, and it brings you your cash flow. And your cash flow is the fuel which runs the engine of your practice. And when I look at treatment coordination, it's not just what goes on in the exam room. Sure, that's part of it. But it really is like a circle, which has three major sections. The first is engagement with the community, with the new patient, with the referring doctors, getting the new patient in, having influence, and conducting the exam for the goal that the patient signs up and starts treatment that day. The next area is follow up. If the patient doesn't start treatment, you have to convert the case. And what are the action steps that you're going to take to be as successful at that as possible? And then the third aspect of treatment coordination is delivery of services. And that includes just a seamless process of financial arrangements, including collections, and maximizing your collections, both with the patient and both with the insurance company, and then also maximizing your referrals.
Got it.
So, treatment coordination is quite broad, and it's an important, um, it's everything really. I mean, it's the fuel of your engine of your practice.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Um, at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of energy and effort put into any of the numbers of sections you've talked about. And we tend to focus on one thing or not another, right? Hey, I'm really into marketing. I'm going to throw everything I've got into marketing this year. I'm going to get a ton. And there's been no training to the TC on the back end, right?
Hmm.
The TC just sort of sits there and
Well,
says, well, she's amazing. She's good at what she does.
mhm.
But what kind of formal training have you given this TC? And I'd love your input on that one.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Glenn, it's a characteristic. Being a fantastic TC, all you need is a winner's mentality of persistence and being friendly. The best TC I've ever had, I've had about 8. And the best TC I ever had zero training. She had a winner's mentality. She was a go-getter. She printed out the pending list. I didn't even have to ask her to print out the pending list. She just automatically knew, where are my patients? Where are my follow-up? And she walked around my office with a clipboard, continuously staying in contact with our pending list and getting those patients to start treatment. She made our office goal the first month she worked.
It's amazing.
And she had zero training. Okay. When I wrote this book, I was in a situation where I had a treatment coordinator. She'd been with me 15 years. I had spent $27,000 training her.
Wow.
I'd had people fly in from all over the country. I'd had people tell me, oh, she's good. The results were not there. And all that matters are the results. It's not how much do you like this person? How friendly are they? How attractive are they? No, the results are the ultimate thing. So I was in a mastermind with Fortune Management. I don't know if you've heard of that company, but it was started by Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
And
they've been around. Fortune Management's got to be at least 30 years, right? I remember I had friends who were in it in the 90s.
Yeah. And the thing I liked about it, it's in my community, and Bernie Stoltz is the CEO of it. And one of my patients, who I just absolutely loved, became a Fortune Management coach. So she invited me to a lot of these things. And I was in a mastermind with a very fantastic guy. And we reflect on, what are we concerned about? What could we do? And I just had this idea, you know what? I'm just going to call the pending list myself. And at that time, I had 902 people on my pending list.
Now, when you say pending, so we can be clear, these are people you presented care to.
That's right. And they had not
started
yet.
Not growth check.
Treatment. They had not yet started treatment.
You had 900 people on your pending list.
902.
Unbelievable.
So I said, okay, today I start. And I just started calling the list. It took me 3 months to get through it once. But you know what I learned, Glenn? Doesn't matter how long ago the patient came for an exam. I started an Invisalign case with a doctor who came for his exam 9 years ago.
Wow.
And when he started, I said to him, now here's a guy, he's a physician. Money is not an object for him. I treated his son. I said, what took you so long? He said, no one ever called me.
You know, it's funny. I have to interrupt for a second. I've heard that so many times where, why, finally somebody comes 4 years later. Why didn't you start? Well, nobody ever followed up with me.
Yes.
And I actually once had a patient, and this is sort of the opposite side of that discussion. I once had a patient who I did an exit interview with who didn't start with us. And I said, so why didn't you start with us? And they sent me an email back. I was emailing and they said, well, I visited a couple of orthodontists and you guys had already checked in with me a week later, but only one office checked in with me a few months later. And so I just felt like they cared about me more. Now think about that. We talk about this like, to us, we don't want to pester them. We don't want to annoy them. I'm not into sales. Like, people say that. And at the end of the day, this patient felt like the other office cared more because they were following up more frequently.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the best time to follow up is 2 days later.
Right.
It is essential because the patient has thought about whatever they need to think about. They've discussed it with their family. They've discussed it with their spouse. They haven't had time to go for another exam and they want to get started. And the 2-day mark, you have a hot lead. They're going to start. And the longer you wait, the lower and lower your chances get.
Right.
So that 2-day follow-up is really critical.
Well, I have to ask you though, when you
Mhm.
reached out to these people, now realize I know you and I have had some discussions in entrepreneurs along with a lot of other people, and you're very hands-on, and we'll get to that a little bit more in a minute. But my question is, there's doctors out there listening to this who are saying, gosh, 9 years, I'd be embarrassed to call somebody 9 years later. So my question for you is when you
Well,
picked up the phone and called, what did you
mhm.
say?
I say, "Hi, this is Dr. Gorczyca calling from Gorczyca Orthodontics. How are you today?" They go, "Oh, great, Dr. Gorska, how are you?" Say, "I'm fantastic. Good to talk with you. Hey, listen, it's been a while. I'm just wondering, did you ever give any more thought to that Invisalign treatment?"
Yeah.
And then stop. Do not say another word. Count to 30. Count 30 seconds. The person responds, "Yes, I have. I've been thinking about it a lot and I need to get started." Great. We have an opening tomorrow at 1 p.m. Would you like to come then? Yes, let's do it. Okay, great. I'm going to transfer you to I do have a treatment coordinator, my treatment coordinator, Gwen, and she is going to work that out for you. She's also going to send you our current contract. You can sign it electronically and come in tomorrow at 1. We'll do your records and we'll get you started.
Fantastic.
Now, coincidentally, that same patient from 9 years ago, he hadn't been to his general dentist in 4 years.
Right.
And I sent the records to his general dentist. The general dentist called me. "Dr. Gorska, thank you so much for following up with that patient. We have not seen him in 4 years. And now he's coming back to our office. And I really want to thank you for following up with him." So don't think the general dentists are following up because they're
Right.
not either. Um, but that's just one example. Another example is I started an orthodontic surgery case. A girl, she was now in her 20s. She said to me, "Dr. Gorska, thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for not giving up on me."
Wow.
Hmm.
Pretty powerful.
So there is no downside, absolutely no downside to following up with your patients. You're building a relationship with them and
Right.
they appreciate it.
Let me go the other direction with
Hmm.
this because, again, there's obviously those out there who are built to do that phone call 9 years later, and then there's the rest of humanity that says, "Oh my gosh, 9 years, I'd be embarrassed." Well, get over it.
Why?
Well, there
Why?
are, because 9 years later, I look desperate. nine
You
years
know
later,
what? I'd be embarrassed that that patient is still walking around with crooked teeth
yeah,
and you didn't even care enough to follow up with them.
I don't have a problem with it. I'm telling
This
you
is a
what I know we're going to
physician.
hear.
This is a physician. This is a busy man. He doesn't have time to call you back. You know, don't think about yourselves. Don't take yourselves so seriously like, "Oh, what are people going to think?" You know what people are going to think? They're going to think you're really successful. That's what they're going to think because they're going to walk into your office and see all the other patients doing Invisalign and they're going to say, "Wow, this doctor is really on it." I mean, her management systems, I mean, now I don't have anybody. My pending list now has 48 names on it.
And most of them are probably from the last
And
few
they're from
weeks,
the last few
months.
months.
Yeah.
So, you know, take time to clean up your pending list. Now, I'll tell you another thing I found. I called one patient. "Hi, Mrs. Jones. I'm just wondering if you've given any more thought to starting that Invisalign treatment." "Oh, yes, Dr. Gorska. Thank you so much for calling me back. Gee, I wanted to start treatment in your office. I called twice because I had a question about my insurance and no one ever called me back."
Hmm.
That's bad. But you know what? You're going to find out about that also
Right.
because your patients really love you and they want your office to be the best it can be. So I appreciated that comment and I followed through with it that the front desk had told the treatment coordinator, left a message, call this patient back, and the treatment coordinator never called her back.
Hmm.
So in my situation, I will tell you, it took me 3 months to get through those 902 names. We started a lot of cases. I mean, we had like the best month we ever had.
Right.
And at the end of it all, my treatment coordinator of 15 years resigned, which is the best thing that could have happened, because let's say she was burnt out, for whatever reason, she was dropping the ball on the team. So now I have a new treatment coordinator. She is excellent. We work as a team, and treatment coordination for us now is a team sport. We go over it every week at our team meeting. We go over all the openings for records and starts. We keep track of all our starts. We keep track of our phone calls, our postcards, and we're really in great shape.
It's beautiful. By the way,
Yes.
what did you do when you called those patients who were a year, 2 years, 6 months, 2 months
Mhm.
pending, and you said, "Hey, Anne Marie, it's Glenn Krieger here from Krieger Orthodontics.
Yes.
Um, did you ever give any more thought to that braces treatment plan we presented you?" And you said, "Yeah, actually, we decided to get braces done for little Jimmy at the other orthodontist down the block. And thank you for calling." And so your response back would simply be, "Well, great. I'm so happy to hear he's being taken care of. Wishing you a great day, and know that I'm always here if you need anything." Was that?
That's fine, but usually when someone doesn't start in my office, they usually say, "We found an office closer to our home." Okay. There's nothing you can do about that. But if they say, "Oh, Dr. Gorczyca, we really liked your office, but oh, I had the patient say this to me. You're not a fit." Okay. Ask the next question. May I ask, what do you mean by that? Well, your down payment is a little too expensive for us. Okay. That's a lot different than you're not a fit. You have
Right.
to ask the next question. If someone said, "I went somewhere else," I would always ask, "If you don't mind, may I ask what influenced your decision?" If they
Right.
say, "Well, the other office was less expensive," there's nothing you can do about that.
Right.
But if they say, "No one called me back," or "Your front desk receptionist was rude to me," well, that's important information that you should know.
Exactly.
So I always ask the next question. May I ask, what was it with the other office? Most of the time, it's something you couldn't do anything about anyway.
You're right.
But
And
then I always end it with, "Well, we're always here. If there's ever anything we can do for you in the future, please don't hesitate to call on us."
what I'm getting from you here is that it's essential, in your opinion, that the orthodontist be the one calling the pending, not an assistant or a TC, because then you're getting a true representation of what's going on. Because if your TC calls and they go, "Well, nobody ever called me back," you're never going to hear about that. You're not
That's
going to
right.
know.
The other thing is when the doctor calls and the patient says, "Your down payment is too expensive." Now, we request a 25% down payment, which
Okay.
I think is standard and an excellent choice. But if a patient said that to me, I would say to them, "Well, our minimum down payment is $750. Would that be manageable for you?" "Oh, yes, Dr. Gorska, we could do that." "Okay, let's get you scheduled."
You're
All right,
providing options.
here's a patient who just told me I'm not a match. I find out the down payment is too high. I change it for them. And now they're coming in and they're starting treatment.
Nice. No, it
So
makes
as the doctor, you have the ability to immediately give that patient what they want. Now, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can't. Let me give you an example. I had a mother come in with 3 kids. and she wanted to start all three kids. So she said, could you give me the naughty D word discount? And I said, yes, we do have a loyalty program. If you start all three children, I could give you $300 off each case. She said, oh, no, 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 that's not enough for me. Is there anything more you can do with that? I said, yes, if you pay cash in full, we could give you $600 off each case. No, 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 that's not enough for me.
This, by the way, Anne-Marie, this
Yes.
sounds like a joke, right? It sounds like you're working your way up to a punchline.
Okay.
So she saw a third orthodontist.
No. So
I know.
finally, I compromised myself to a level I felt very uncomfortable with, because I wanted to start the three kids. I said, okay, if you start all three kids this month and pay cash, I'll take $1,000 off each case. Okay, she went somewhere else, and she actually got a price so low that I know it's below what is even profitable. I know that.
Right.
It was, let me think, it was so low. I mean, I just said to her, well, good for you. I'm so sorry. There's just no way I can treat you in my office. Thank you so much and good luck. So you got to be careful about that. We really try to minimize courtesies, to limit it to $300 loyalty program or $300 cash payment in full. And you've got to stick with that, because otherwise you are just losing thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars if you're, having those discussions with patients.
Yeah. It's really interesting how that, every practice has their own philosophy on these sorts of things. But
Mhm.
I really do love the way you look at the pending. And, we're running out of time here. And the one thing
Yes.
I really wanted to talk about, we're not going to get as much time as I'd like, but I'd really like you to dive in and talk about the role of the orthodontist in managing the finances and looking at dollars spent. And I know there was a great conversation in Orthopreneurs where you talked about how 1 minute a day could save you tremendous sums of money over the course of a year. And if you wanted to talk about that a little bit, I'd love for people to hear it.
Well, a few years ago, I got a new accountant who is excellent. He was recommended by Fortune Management, by the way. His name is Basim Michael, and his practice is in Fresno, California. And one thing he insisted on is that I get my own mail. And at the time, I thought, well, I've never had gotten my own mail before. Like, what's the big deal? My front desk just goes to the mailbox, takes the key, opens the mailbox, gets the mail. He goes, no, no, no. You need to get your own mail, look at what is in there, go through the invoices, and then manage that.
Right.
Okay. I was really surprised what I found. I had found invoices for services that I had ended that I was still paying a monthly fee for. I had found mistakes in the invoices. I had invoices from other orthodontic offices. I had quantities that I had not ordered. And I cannot emphasize enough that one step, how many thousands of dollars that saved me. And to take it a step further, keeping your invoices and once a month putting together an accounts payable list so that you are certain that your cash flow is that your expenses are at the level that you want. Now, you've got to be very careful because reps are going to come into your office and they're going to want to give you these huge deals like you buy $10,000 worth of cases, you're going to get 10 cases free or whatever. Well, if you read Profit First, the book by Mark
Right.
Michalowicz,
He's a great guy.
he always talks about order the small plates because there is a cost there's a shelf life of your products and there's an opportunity cost for you placing these huge orders where things are just sitting on the shelf for 6 months, and heaven forbid you have any interest on any loan anywhere in your life, and you could be using that money to pay a line of credit or a credit card or even your mortgage, you're losing money. And it's a poor decision. It's a poor money management decision. So I like that philosophy of you want around a 2-week turnaround time, shelf life, and you want to order the small plates. One thing I learned from Marianne with the Orthozone, I had a very nice conversation with her, and she said, Anne-Marie, one of the best things you can do is get your ordering clerk or coordinator a credit card and put a limit on it and make the limit low. Okay. So I got a credit card from my ordering coordinator and I put a $1,500 limit on it. Okay. Now that's low. But I wanted her to realize the things that she orders, whether it be uniforms, how much things cost. And, that's another thing at your weekly team meeting. Go over the invoices, like actually tell your team, okay, here we are. These are the invoices that we have for this month. This is our Invisalign bill. Tell them the actual amount so they know what your cash flow is.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, your collections are not going to seem as astronomically high when they actually know what it costs to run an office. And in my book, I did put down a list of fixed costs so that all orthodontists know and the team knows that before you even turn the lights on, you owe $10,000 a month just to keep your office open and just in fixed costs. And then you've got variable costs. And the variable costs, you need to price check. You need to negotiate the price. You don't just go with the first order. You don't just go with the biggest company because they come in with a scanner and they tell you, oh, we're going to scan your orders. Big deal. I mean, all I care about is what's the price. A suction tip is a suction tip is a suction tip. I don't care where I buy it from. I care about the price. So that's a whole area of finance that orthodontists, I have yet to find a single course on finance. But you and I could do it if you ever want to do it. We could do it together. But I think
I wish I had the time. I'd love to.
yeah, I think that's a huge area where orthodontists could be so much more profitable if they handled their finances a little bit better.
Well, I think that, unfortunately, I think we're out of time, but
Okay.
I want to ask, before I let you go, I just want to ask, you have 4 books. If you don't mind telling everybody what the titles of the 4 books are and where they can get them if they're interested.
Okay. Well, my first book is called It All Starts with Marketing, because it all does start with marketing. The day you open your practice, you have to know how to market. And I started my practice from scratch and I grew it to be quite a big practice in a very short amount of time. So for orthodontists out there, 201 marketing tips in that book are all things that I did in my own community that work, that will help you grow your practice. The second book, Beyond the Morning Huddle, is human resource management. And this is probably the most difficult aspect of orthodontic practice management. The book was reviewed by several attorneys and also HR consultants. So it is legally sound and it gives case scenarios how you can handle difficult HR situations that will come up in your practice. The third book is called At Your Service, and it's a customer service book. And it talks about what you and your team can do to deliver outstanding customer service to your patients. The treatment coordination book is called Take Action, and it lists the action items that you can do today, starting now, this very minute, to get more patients to start treatment. I mean, treatment coordination, truly, it is sales. but no one ever uses that word. But if you know how to do sales, and Glenn, I will just say, sales is persistence. So, I mean, anti-sales is I don't want to be pushy. That's anti-sales. Sales is I want to be consistent. I want to follow up. Sales is there is no Easter bunny, there is no Santa Claus, and the pending patient will never call you back. You must call them. That is the reality of sales. And take
There's
action.
no Easter Bunny?
There's I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Glenn. There
Man.
isn't.
Oh my gosh.
Um, but sales is persistence. And I want to tell your listeners one more story. I called one mother on the pending list and I said, "Hi, Mrs. Jones. This is Dr. Gorczyca. I just wanted to know if you wanted to get Sally Sue started with orthodontic treatment this month." She says, "Oh, yes, Dr. Gorczyca, I do. Thank you so much for calling." Now, these were her words. "I know you've called me 4 times." Well, I had actually called that patient over 14 months, 14 times.
Wow.
And that mother thinks I've called her 4 times. So that's an important lesson because you think you're being pushy. Actually, 75% of your calls aren't even memorable.
Hmm.
So I assure all your listeners, you are not being pushy to follow up and call. Do any of your friends, when you call your friends, and you probably have friends you call every week, but you're only calling these people once a month. Do any of your friends ever say to you, "Glenn, you're being really pushy. I mean, you just called me
Right.
last week. Why are you calling me back again?" No, of course not. Because you're friends. And think of your new patients as your friends. And you're doing them a favor. You're just trying to make it easy for them. You're trying to help them out because they're busy, busy people. They don't have time to call you back. There was a question on orthopreneurs about do you get the patient? Yes, of course you do, because people leave their cell phone numbers now. And that's why I really love lunchtime, because at lunchtime, everyone's eating lunch. So they have time to talk. You're not interrupting their work. And it's a good time for them to schedule the appointment.
Nice. No, totally. You're a wealth of information, and
Yeah.
I appreciate everything you bring here, and hopefully people will heed your advice and take what they can. And last but not least, you can get any of those books on Amazon. So if you can run through the names one last time, real quickly, so that people know what the names are when they look on Amazon.
Okay. Well, then just go in and put in dental practice management, and you can put in marketing, HR, customer service, treatment coordination. The books will come up, or you can put in my last name or my first name, Anne Marie, and the books will come up.
And
And
there they are over her shoulder. They're red, blue, yellow, and green, so you can see them. So when you see them pop up, you'll see if the books don't look like that, if they don't look red, blue, yellow, or green like that, they're the wrong books. And so
and
definitely,
I think of my books as a game plan. They are things that we've done in my office with my team over the years. And I assure you, I wouldn't put something in the book that doesn't work. So they are action items you can take to work on whatever you'd like to work on. And at the very end of the book, I always put a calendar of if you're going to work on these items as a team once a month, what could I pick to work on? So for the listeners out there today, I would say if there's one thing I'm going to give you 2 things you could do today that would make a huge difference in your patient starts. Number one, call everybody on the pending list and do it every month. Number two, call everyone on the missed exams list because those patients want to come back. They were busy that day. They forgot about it. Before you spend $1 on marketing, make sure that your missed exam list is at a minimum number of people on that list. Same thing with phase 2 observation patients who don't have appointments. That list should be 0. Everyone needs to have an appointment on that list. And don't ever give up on a patient. Even if they came in over 2 years ago, invite them back for a new exam. And you're going to be surprised how many of those people actually start treatment. And in my research, Glenn, I have found that, let's say 50% of your exams either schedule that day, start that day, or they start within the first week. They call back, they start within the first week. Okay, 50% of your exams. The other 50%, I would say it takes them an average of 12 to 14 months to get started.
Wow.
It's not as fast as you think. Those patients are getting their flex spending accounts ready. They are saving up the down payment. Maybe they have another kid in treatment and they say, I want to finish that kid first before I start the next one. And I have studied this for over 5 or 6 years, and you are going to be very successful if you are patient. But
Okay.
if you're the type that you call them once, call them twice, and you go, oh, I don't want to bother them, they're not going to start, and you just delete the patient, well, you're not doing your practice any favors.
Nor are you doing any favors for that patient. And
No, you're there to serve them. And you could even say to the patient, if you'd like to be my patient, I would really appreciate it if you scheduled your start today, even if it's a year from now, because it alleviates you making the appointment in the future and our following up with you. And some patients will schedule, it's very common that patients will schedule for January of the following year.
yeah.
So right now, you might have many patients, adult patients, who are going to say, I would like to do this. I'm going to start January next year. And they'll make the appointment for January of next year and they will follow up.
But with that, we call the end of this episode of the Orthopreneurs Podcast. I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, Marie Gorczyca, for being here and sharing all your wisdom. I'm sure there's a lot out there that people are going to have questions for you about, so they can hit you up when they're in the Orthopreneurs group. And I just want to say thank you. And
well, thank you. It's an honor to speak with you. And thank you for the great work that you're doing for the orthodontic profession. We all really appreciate it, and we appreciate you very much.
Well, thank you. And we appreciate you. So with that, wishing you a great day and take care.
Thank you.